Today I have a special guest with me, Jeffrey Pledger.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm excited. It's a little different for us then, being that we didn't tell people. Not that I didn't want the support, but it was something that for me, it was like looking outward and looking at God, and that you've given me this for a reason. I'm not going to ask why. I'm not going to ask that question, why me? I'm not going to sit in it or anything. There's a reason. I don't know what it is. I might not ever find out the answer why, but you did. So what are we going to do?
Regardless of how you put it, it's crazy to get cancer.
Yeah.
There's no real way to look at that in any kind of small sense.
And my daughter actually asked me if I knew how to do a cartwheel. So I went out back and I was like, yeah, of course I knew how to do a cartwheel. So I did a cartwheel and I felt like a slight pull in my back. And when I rounded off and both my legs planted, I felt some of like the worst pain I've ever felt in my life. So I was just like, all right, well, clearly that was wrong. Now coming months, everything just progressively just got worse. I can barely stand up. And she was like, absolutely not. You're going to the ER. So I went to the ER here in town and he's like, so do you see these little like squiggly marks in your vertebrae? He's like, you have a broken back. That explains the back pain, but we think there's something else. Chemo is going to put me to the verge of death. Unfortunately, like there's nothing you can do for me physically. And my oncologist, she was just like, I am going to hit you so hard with chemotherapy that your body's just going to have to rebuild itself because I'm going to wipe out everything.
Thank you for tuning into this episode of BeastvsZombie. Today I have a special guest with me, Jeffrey Pledger. He has overcame Non Hodgkins Lymphoma. He's going to share his experience overcoming cancer and his perspective on overcoming challenges in his life. So thank you so much for joining today. I really appreciate your time today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm excited.
Cool. So the first question I want to ask you is, what would be your advice to anybody on overcoming any kind of challenge in their life?
I think it's just, you got to hit it head on. You can't, shy away from it. You're going to learn from any challenge that you're going to have, whether it be large or small. But it's really, seeing that light at the end of the tunnel and knowing that you're going to get through, you're going to persevere.
Yeah, 100%. I think it's always, like you said, you got to be able to see kind of like the end goal. And that comes with like kind of having some kind of belief or some kind of faith, or what I like to say, I always call it like supreme confidence.
Yeah.
That you're gonna be able to get to the end. I always tell people, right, that comes from a lot of ways, but right, that's just honestly like a belief that you're able to overcome challenges in your life, right? Because we've always, all of us, honestly, right, we're here today. We've overcame every challenge that we've ever faced in our life, right?
Yeah.
We're 100%.
Yeah.
So I always tell people, man, like, it might be tough. It might not be what you expected, right? But just have confidence, have faith in yourself. Like, you're a human, right? So we have, we're strong, resilient people. And like I said, we've overcame everything that we had going on in our lives. So tell me a little bit about your experience, right? So we both had non-Hodgkin's lymphoma.
Yes.
What was your experience as far as being diagnosed with cancer and kind of coming out on the other side?
Well, it started. So when I left a retail career and I wanted to become a barber, so I was actually going to beauty school. Even though in California I'm a licensed barber, I did actually attend Federico's Beauty Institute. Shout out Federico's Beauty Institute in Sacramento. Uh, when I was there, my mother-in-law at the time was watching our kids, my wife and I's kids, and they were in the backyard, and we got out of school a little early. And my daughter, actually, my oldest daughter, Audrey, asked me if I knew how to do a cartwheel because my mother-in-law was teaching her how to do cartwheels. So I went out back and I was like, yeah, of course I knew how to do cartwheels. I was just a break dance. Of course I do. So I did a cartwheel and I felt like a slight pull in my back, and I just thought, like, all right, at the time, before I know it, I'm going to be 30, getting a little bit older, So I didn't think anything of it. And then I was like, well, hey, do you know what a round off is? She's like, no, Dad, I don't. So I did a round off. And when I rounded off and both my legs planted, I felt some of like the worst pain I've ever felt in my life, where it just felt like an accordion. It just like all crunched up. So I was just like, all right, well, clearly that was wrong. So just took it kind of easy. In the next, like, now coming months, everything just progressively just got worse. Some days were worse than others, so it was just like, oh, I thought, just chalking it up like, oh, I'm on my feet all the time now. I'm on, the floor at school, so I'm doing hair all the time. I'm not used to being on my feet like that. When I was working retail, I was in retail management. So sometimes I was on the floor, sometimes it was stuff in the back, some coachings and trainings, but it was never anything like I was at school. So I just thought it was that. Well, it just, like I said, it just got worse and worse and worse. So fast forward to June, that was around April. So it was a couple months, and I didn't know my wife. So I graduated school in June. I got my license June 1st. And then my wife and I actually got married June 9th of 2015. So right after that is when I was like, hey, I woke up one morning and I was like, babe, something's wrong. Like, I can't feel my legs. Like, this is bad. And she's like, what do you mean? I was like, I'm having trouble even rotating out of bed. So she helps me move my legs. I can barely stand up. And she was like, absolutely not. You're going to the ER. So I went to the ER here in town, and I was able to like shuffle out of the car, get into a wheelchair. They take me in, wait a little bit. I get into a room. The doctor's like, hey, what's going on? And I'm like, I can't really feel my legs. So he has me stand up. We do a couple things. And he's like, well, look, man, like, I don't want to sound like this, but back pain is really hard to diagnose. And being that, like, you're kind of still able to move around, I just follow up with your primary. I can give you, some like 800 ibuprofens, get the swelling down a little bit. So we end up following up with my primary, and I'm telling her what's going on. And that's at Kaiser here in town. So I tell her, and she's like, absolutely not. You're getting an MRI right now. So they get me into it. I do an MRI. And as soon as I'm done with the MRI, they're like, head of neurosurgery wants to talk to you. I'm like, cool. What are we talking about? And he's like, so we're going over my MRI, and he's like showing me my vertebrae. And we get down to like L3, L4, L5. And he's like, so do you see like these little like squiggly marks in your vertebrae? I'm like, yeah. He's like, you have a broken back. I'm like, wait, what? He's like, you have a broken back. Like, you have two fully compression fractured vertebrae and a little bit in the other one. I'm like, oh, okay. So that explains the back pain. And he's like, but we think there's something else. So I'm like, all right. So he's like, well, first I want to try something. So a nurse comes in, gives me a shot of something. And then I immediately, this was the best I've ever felt in months. Like, I'm able to just get up out of the bed, and I'm like moving around, and I'm like, man, dude, what did you just give me? He's like, yeah, yeah, it's not what we wanted to see, but we did actually give you, I believe that one was prednisone, so I got steroids, but I felt amazing. So they were like, yeah, so we think you have cancer. Like, went from you found out I have a broken back to we think you have cancer. I was like,
Sheesh.
time stopped. Like, you could hear a
Yeah.
pin drop. I could hear my heartbeat. Like, the echoing of noises in the ER in other rooms I could hear, because it's just like, I mean, when you got your diagnosis, like, that feeling where it's like, wait, you went from broken back to cancer real quick. So we didn't know for sure yet, but that's, hey, we think it might be, I want to say you said like multi-myeloma, or it could be lymphoma of some sort. We just don't know until we biopsy you. Like, all right, well, what do we do? Like, do we get the ball rolling now? And when, like I said, when he was going through the MRI, I was just like, well, it's head of neuro. Maybe like, okay, I've got a broken back, and he's like, we gotta go to surgery right now. Like, we got to repair your vertebrae somehow. So he tells me that they're going to biopsy my back, so they need to not fully do like a spinal tap, but they're like, we're gonna kind of put you into a twilight, and we got to stick a needle in there. Like, cool.
Yeah.
Well, let's get the ball rolling. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, if this is something that
Yeah.
we're finding early, well, let's get it going. So we a couple hours go by, and then they go in, and then I get my biopsy. Obviously, no results yet. You know what I mean? But an amazing staff at the Kaiser in Vacaville, and the doctor that did the biopsy, it was Dr. Eric Chen, and that guy. I mean, just the bedside manner he had, and just how, like, you can tell how empathetic he was for the situation. It was phenomenal. So, got the biopsy. I ended up actually staying overnight in the hospital. My wife stayed as long as she could with me, and then she had to get home to the kids because my mother-in-law couldn't keep staying. But it was just, I remember laying in the hospital bed that night, and it's like, I just graduated school. I got my barber's license. I'm getting ready to start like a whole new life. I just got married, and fast forward, not even a month after being married, that I'm finding out I might have cancer. Like, wild.
That's insane. Yeah.
Yeah, it was crazy.
So, so did you actually end up having was your back actually broken? Right.
Yep. So
That's
what they had, yeah. So what they had said was, after finally actually getting the diagnosis for non Hodgkins lymphoma, they were saying that the lymphoma was already there. That when I broke my back, it was a pathological fracture. That it then just isolated itself right there around my spinal cord. So essentially, like, that lymphatic fluid that would normally go to something that would help repair or do anything like that lymph fluid does, it was already in it. So it was one of those, like, we're just going to stay isolated right here because we're trying to repair this, but we can't because there's cancer. So it was
oh,
essentially just like a stranglehold on my vertebrae and on my spinal cord, which that's where, like I said, there were some days going through school and just through life, and even some days that I didn't have to go to school where I was good. Like, I felt okay. Like, I could take some ibuprofen or, something just for some mild pain management, and I was good. But then there was other days where it was like, I don't even want to get up. Like, this hurts so bad. Like, there is no amount of stretching and decompression of the spine or anything like that I could do that was just like, oh, this is giving me relief. Because I was going to a chiropractor here in town, and she was actually one of the ones that actually kind of really pushed to go after, well, before I couldn't feel my legs. I was going to her to maybe get some relief, and she was the one that was just like, Jeff, you've been under my care now a couple months, and I get, you've been on your feet more with school, but I really think you should go and maybe go see a doctor. But then it was just, getting done with school, getting married, and then just boom.
yeah, man, that's insane. The it's crazy. So we both got cancer in around 2015
Mhm.
was the same time, and it's interesting because we had the same cancer and we found out in completely different ways.
Mhm.
And so like it was just like in a different place, right? So like when you got a PET scan, where would you did get a PET scan at some point, right?
Yeah, I mean, we've had multiples, you know what I mean? Especially,
Hmm.
after remission and everything like that, just to make sure. So my initial first PET scan, the oncologist, Dr. Mahaldar, she had told me, like, it hasn't spread. It's just isolated right there around that, L3, L4, L5 area of my lower back.
Oh, well, that was. Did they give you like some kind of stage?
No, so and that's what was crazy was because it never actually attached to an organ or tissues, they didn't ever stage it. So effectively, like we caught it so early that it never had time to actually attach. That's where, the conversation we had, a little bit of, how long it took you. Relatively speaking, my whole entire from diagnosis to remission was really fast because I think it was that that it was around the vertebrae and it was around my spinal cord that it made my body just almost like shut down. So it was like, no, you're going, like you're going to go see something. There's got to be some medical intervention in some shape, way, or form.
Okay, cool. So so that's right. So that's like where this differs a little bit, right? Like
Mhm.
so like when I was diagnosed, my cancer had spread from so basically the way I figured it out is I had a lymph node on the side of my neck and it was swollen.
Hmm.
It was swollen and I similar to you, I was going to a chiropractor because I had gotten in a car accident actually like I don't know, a month or two before. And I asked my chiropractor, I thought it was just a knot in my neck. I asked him to rub it out.
Yeah.
And he was like, no, I can't rub this out. You need to go see a doctor. I had Kaiser at the time. I was in college. I was going to UNLV in Las Vegas. So I didn't get I still didn't think anything of it. And I went to urgent care when I went home for the holidays that year.
Mhm.
And the doctor knew right away. He's like, I can't diagnose you. We have to run tests, but I believe you have cancer. And I didn't believe it. We got tests and sure enough, whatever. And so when I got a PET scan, I had cancer all throughout my chest and there was some like below my diaphragm. So it was considered like stage 4. And so that's just kind of the difference as far as like when I caught it. But it was kind of it it sounds kind of crazy, but it was almost kind of a good thing that you broke your back
Exactly.
because it was like God or whatever was like sending you a sign like telling you like dude go to the doctor, get this figured out.
And it's something that,
So
our oldest daughter, she's 16 now. And at the time, when I got diagnosed, well, when she asked me to do that cartwheel, she was only 5. So her asking me to do that and me just being willing to like, okay, what, baby girl just asked me to do this, and it was like, all right. And I think now it being 10 years, and I just say it jokingly, that if you never would have asked me to do that, who's to say that I'd actually still be here? You know what I
or
mean? It's just that one.
or ever
Yeah, that one little brief moment in life, like you said, that it was just like, hey, you should probably do this cartwheel. And just without even a thought in my mind, I was just like, yeah, I'm going to do it, and did it, and then did the round off. But if I never would have broke my back, how far could it have gotten? Where, like you said, you found a lump, or what if I would have then found something under my armpit, and then it's like, yeah, you're stage 4, and it's throughout your whole body.
yeah,
The
that is
I say it, as somebody that has broken their back, that amount of pain to still, have me be here, it's like totally worth it. Totally worth
yeah.
breaking my back, literally.
And so okay, I, I've never I broke my hand when I was little. So like how is your back now?
It's good. Yeah, it's good. I still, and this
Solid.
is where it's just the same thing, it jokes, I think, and humor and laughter. I think that was one of the biggest things, like when I was going through treatment, but just in life as a whole, has just helped everything. And it's good now. They'd actually asked me after I went into remission if I wanted to do kyphoplasty, which was, it would be injecting like medical like cement into the vertebrae to lift them back to normal height. So I joke about it all the time. And I was like, my ID and everything says my true height. And I was like, no, I was 6 foot. before I broke my back. But now I'm
Yeah.
like 5'10" and a quarter because I pretty much broke two full vertebrae. I compressioned them
Oh.
and another one. So that's why I shrunk, guys. Not age, and not that, I
Yeah.
wasn't that, 6 foot mark, because I was 6 foot, but I broke my back.
Yeah.
So now I'm not.
Man. So, okay. So you get diagnosed with cancer, which is crazy. Even regardless of how you put it, it's crazy to get
It
cancer.
is. It is.
There's no real way to look at that in any kind of small sense.
Mm-mm.
And so how are you, not only like how are you feeling, but how is your wife, your kids, your family, your friends, how are they taking this kind of news?
Well, I mean, how they took the news, and this is where it's a little different for us then, being that we didn't tell people. I not that I didn't want the support, because I did, but it was something that for me it was like, and people have their own spiritual beliefs and everything like that, but mine specifically, it was a looking outward and looking at God, and that, okay, you've given me this for a reason. I'm not going to ask why. I'm not going to ask that question, why me? I'm not going to sit in it or anything. There's a reason. I don't know what it is. I might not ever find out the answer why, but you did. So what are we going to do? And that was my why, was why I fought so hard, was for my wife, for my kids. And it was just one of those moments then that was like, I don't want to say anything. So I've always like done different stuff with my hair, especially like being a barber. So when I got diagnosed, it was in the summer. And summers in Northern California where we live, it gets hot. Not like Vegas hot, but it gets hot, where we'll hit triple digits. And we could get a heat spell of, a couple weeks of just hot, hot, hot. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to go through chemotherapy. She's already given me my treatment plan. I'm going to preemptively strike right now. I'm going to shave all my facial hair off. I'm going to shave my head and just like post something on my Instagram like, hey, trying the whole like Mr. Clean for the summer, because I knew every 3 weeks I was going to get chemo. So that was going to last me up until, sometime in the fall, early winter. So if I just keep shaving my head now, I might be able to kind of hold it off where people kind of maybe won't guess that I'm going through treatment. So it was one of those, like, I struck there and, shaved it all off, but with the kids and, my wife, then, like I said, we chose not to tell anybody. Obviously, family, close friends, my big brother, I told my best friend, I told my family, my sister, my mom, my dad, and just a handful of people, because I didn't want people, which, I mean, when you do tell people that you have it, it's an instant shift, unfortunately, where like they want to do something for you, but they don't really know if they can. But it's like, hey, I want to pray for you. And it's like, cool, do that. Like, pray for me, pray for my wife, pray for my kids. But also, like, if you really want to help, like, make us some food. Like, unfortunately, like, there's nothing you can do for me physically, because this is just something that chemo is going to put me to the verge of death. And then it's my body that is going to rebuild itself. That's it. It's not obviously it's not like a miracle drug or anything. It's just, I am going to, and my oncologist, not in the exact words, she was just like, I am going to hit you so hard with chemotherapy that your body's just going to have to rebuild itself, because I'm going to wipe out everything. You're getting a full borderline control alt delete, but
Yeah.
my wife was, the champion in my corner. And what I saw afterwards, she just heard me, afterwards of what she told me, actually what was really going on. every time I'd see her, it was just this strong woman and, making sure that, the bills were paid, making sure food was ready, making sure after chemo treatments, that the house, there was like a team of people that came and fully disinfected the house. The kids were so young that I think only really my oldest daughter and our middle, so our youngest daughter, she vaguely remembers it, but like my son, he doesn't remember it at all. He was only like a year and a half old. So there wasn't a whole lot
Hmm.
other than like looking at photos, but the kids fortunately don't remember it a whole lot. So it's mainly just, my wife that, she was, from what I saw, was always super strong about everything. But after we actually finished chemo, I got the, hey, you're in remission. Then she finally told me everything that was like, no, I had a crying corner in the garage. Like me and your mom would like trade off of like, okay, it's your turn. You can go. Oh, okay, no, it's your turn. You can go now. Or, just taking a drive around the block to just like process that, I just went through my third treatment. I just went through my fourth treatment. I just went through my fifth treatment. And I think it was just looking back at photos or, remembering the, unfortunately, the decay of me, and watching the weight go away and, watching, my hair fall out and, your nails change colors, the neuropathy in my hands, like just all those things that just progress that are the side effects of chemotherapy. But the whole time, just her just championing me and oh babe, you look so good, and look at your skin, it's glowing. And it was like, what are you talking about? My face is fat right now from these steroids. They're just super round. Like, I had no definition of my face at all. And, I lost like 60 pounds. What are you talking about? I've got no ass anymore. What?
Yeah, man, it's like so. First of all, that's so funny. You said just make me some food. I love food, and
Yeah.
and man, that is one. That's one of my languages, man. And like after a couple of my bone marrow transplants, like some of the coolest things that some people did, like one of my neighbors, I call him out all the time. Shout out to Stuart Kittyama. He's one of my neighbors, and he would make me meals every once in a while. He's a manager at a grocery store, so he would always get food,
Mhm.
and he loved to cook. And his family didn't like all the food that he liked, so some of it he would cook for me, and it was kind of like timing. And but like some of those gifts, right, were like that was the best thing somebody could do for me is make me a meal,
Yeah.
or there was a time my uncle came over. He wouldn't come in. Like when you get a bone marrow transplant, you're stuck in the hospital for a month. You're just like quarantined. You're going through all this stuff because your immune system is so low. And
Mhm.
so he's not a fan of hospitals, so he wouldn't come and visit me in the hospital. But as soon as I got out, he came over to my house, and we would, when I was younger, we would always have barbecues at his place. So he was always barbecuing. So he knew how much I loved his food. And so immediately when I got out of the hospital, he came over and cooked me a meal. That was one of the coolest things and
Yeah.
the best things that somebody could have done for me.
And it was, and
And
it meant a lot.
yes.
It really did. It was like those little things, or, one of my buddies, which we didn't want to do a lot of like pain management stuff as far as pills, because I did do that at the very beginning, and I just I felt like a zombie because I didn't want to do anything. I was just laid up in the bed because my back was broken, so it was just like I don't want to get up and throw this back brace on. It's just big and cumbersome, and there's this huge plate in the back, and I got this metal rod up the front, and I got to cinch it down, and then it's got this metal bar across it, and it just shoves your shoulders back. So even just one of my buddies, Scotty, that would come over and like, hey man, so I don't know if you're down to do this, but there's some medicinal that we could do so that it'll kind of help you. One, it'll help with the pain, but two, it's going to help you eat a little bit. Your call. So, my buddy Scotty would, just come over and, help me out, and we just sit there and watch soccer and eat some food, just fall asleep. But it was just like those little gestures from friends that meant way more. The text messages I'd get from my brother Sean, or my best friend Steven, my cousin Face, these dudes that were just, hey man, I was just thinking about you. Just those little gestures, because it's like they're physically, there's not a whole lot anyone really can do for you. You know what I mean? It's just it's you, your mental, and you just gotta get after it.
Yeah. And it's awesome. It really shows you who shows up for you, right? It really shows you who's in your corner.
Hmm.
Vice versa, it shows you who might not be in your corner. And I like your thought process. You were like, this happened for a reason,
Hmm.
and you know, I'm not going to question why,
Yeah.
right? I might not ever know why, right? But being able to again feel confident that this happens for a reason, everything's going to be okay. What do we do next?
Yep.
Right? That mindset is so, how do you say it? It's so positive, it's so empowering. That's kind of the best way to say it, right? It gives you a way to kind of lift the weight off your shoulders and put that into your faith, right?
Yeah.
And be able to just feel good and be able to move forward. A lot of it is unknown, so you just have to be able to feel good in a lot of unknown at that moment,
Hmm.
right? And being able to think about it in a way that helps you feel good about it is so important, and it's really cool. So for me, it was a little tough for me to get over that. Why is this happening to me, right? And then as I kind of shifted into, well, it doesn't really matter, because I've always been a super positive guy. It doesn't really matter why it's happening to me, right? It's just like, okay, like what do we do next? Like, I know the first thing when my dad asked me how I felt about it is I just told him again, there's some unknown. I don't really understand what's happening. I'm 19 at the time. All I know is like we just have to do whatever we need to do to beat this,
Hmm.
right? And that I tried to always lead by example with my attitude throughout the whole process. And here we are on the other side, right? And it was something that, right, it changes your perspective on, you know the little things, right?
Yes.
Now all of a sudden, like you said, a text message from your brother or your cousin or your friend now holds a lot of weight, right? A simple meal that maybe was before all of this just like a normal meal, and we were thinking about all these other things, now this simple meal holds so much more weight,
Yeah.
right? And I think that that's also another reasoning into why all of this happened,
Hmm.
right? And you come out on the other side, and now you got this perspective that makes you just think about things differently, right? And similar, man, another thing I want to point on, right? Like how strong your wife was for you, right? For
Oh yeah.
me, or I mean, and honestly, just in general, like right now, I have a fiance right now, and but my mother was went through this whole process. I hadn't met my fiance at the time. My mother went through this whole process with me, and how strong women are, and how important they are in our lives is extremely kind of like underrated,
Hmm.
right? And it's interesting. I do a live every other week. It's called The Other Perspective, where I bring on family, friends, health professionals to talk about their perspective
Hmm.
on seeing people go through cancer, or what that looks like, and their experience with that. And I had my mom on last week or this week, and we asked her, were there ever times when it was hard, right? And I couldn't tell. My mom is a very like if you didn't know her, you don't see her go through a lot of emotions,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so she's like this little like 5'2" like Korean lady,
Mm-hmm.
and right, you don't see her go through a lot of emotions. Even me as her son, no, since I know her so well, I can kind of understand a little bit more than a normal person would. But even me, I don't see her go through a lot of emotions. I haven't seen her kind of break down very many times, right? And so we asked her, was there ever a time when it was tough? And similar to your wife and your mom, she said, it wasn't. It was the times when she was, for example, like riding in the car by herself, or
Yeah.
when she was in some space by herself and she was just kind of sitting in it. That's when she felt that those were kind of those harder times. And so it's just so awesome to have such strong women in our lives to support us in times like this. It's just amazing. So it's like shout out to all the moms, the wives, the even my sister, things like that.
Yeah.
It's just it's incredible. I'm kind of going like off track, but I watched a video last night with my fiance, and it was talking about the amount of energy that a woman expends while she's pregnant. And it
Mm.
said, and again, this is on social, so like honestly, I don't always know what to believe on socials, but it said that a woman every single day expends as much energy as running 2 marathons while they're pregnant.
I believe that.
Every single
Yeah,
day.
I believe that. I
and,
believe that. I've watched it
and
three
so
times, so I believe that.
right. And so I was like, dang, that's crazy that, right? Like my mom went through that, right? With 2 kids, right? If we ever have kids, that's what my wife will go through. Things like that. Again, just kudos to all the moms and the strong women
Mhm.
in our lives. I think it's just a big deal and sometimes goes unappreciated. So
Yeah, and my mom was
that's
actually the first phone call after I got diagnosed. Like, hung up with my oncologist, and I called my mom because my mom and my stepdad, they live in Texas. And at the time, my father, he was stationed at Coronado down in San Diego. So he was down there. He was civil service for the Navy. But I called my mom first and let her know what was going on. And just immediately, like, I'm buying a plane ticket. When's your first round? Like, just wanted to know everything, that I'm going to be there. Like, I'm leaving, like, right now. It's like, well, calm down. Like, I don't even know like when my first round is. I still have to do a PET scan. I still have to do. They wanted to do a MUGA scan on my heart. I needed to do a bone density scan, which that was the worst thing I've ever done in my life. That hurt so bad. Um,
explain that. What goes into a bone density scan?
so so on a bone density scan, which my back was broken. So I think that's why it hurt so bad. Where
Hmm.
they put me in a bed, but the bed like was almost like a little like half pipe, and it was just hard plastic. And they scan the whole body, and they put like, and they bring in a case into this room, and then they open the case. And in movies when like you see like dry eyes or something like roll out of it, that's what it felt like. And then they open the case, and then the doctor, like, or whoever administered it, like, full PPE, double glove, injects it into me, and is like, cool. So this is going to go through your system, and then you're going to go and you're going to get scanned. Well, with that bone density scan, like I said, they put me in this big, hard, like plastic bed that was like half piped. Because my back was broken, they're like, in order for us to fully get the scan, it's going to be about 45 minutes. We need you to lay flat. I'm like, cool, I can't. And they're like, you have to. And then they had to bind my feet together like that. So I have
Hmm.
my hips up in that like half pipe bed, but then my feet are bound together this way. So it's pulling them even more. So it was like 45 minutes of just sheer agony because it felt like it was just cranking on the vertebrae and they were broken. And my big brother Sean was with me. And he's like, all right, man. So they're starting the scan. Like you said, man, it's only like 45 minutes. Dude, you got this. And I'm in just so much pain. And the lady that's like looking at everything in the room, I don't know if she was a tech or a nurse or who she was, but like tears just start coming out of my eyes, man, because it hurt so bad. It was borderline. I wanted to pass out, and I was like asking, like, dude, can you? Because I'm trying to stay as still as possible, and I'm asking, like, dude, can you please ask them? Is there anything like they could give me right now? So he like goes out of the room and he comes back and he's like, hey, bro, I'm really sorry, but dude, you got to grit this one out, man. And I'm like, dude, I don't know if I can, man. And he's like holding my hand, and he's wiping tears from my face, and he like gets up and he like goes in the machine. He's like, hey, dude, good news, man, only 15 minutes left. I'm like, bro, you said 15 minutes 15 minutes ago. Like, what are you talking about? Like, Sean, you're lying to me. But just to have him there with me, and just like I said, just like wiping tears from my face, and just lying to me that, no, man, you got 5 minutes left. Oh, dude, you said 5 minutes 5 minutes ago. Like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
But it was just,
Right.
they had to fully look at all the bones just to make sure that, nothing spread there, because unfortunately, the first bone marrow biopsy that my oncologist did was actually inconclusive. So when she did it, they couldn't get anything. So then they were like, okay, well, let's do a bone density scan and like let's look at everything, see what's going on there. And then exact same guy that did my biopsy, Dr. Eric Chen, he was actually then the one that did my second bone marrow biopsy, which I think of all the stuff, that was probably number two as far as pain level, where it's just like, okay, so let me get this straight. Like, you have a drill with a needle and you're going through the back of my pelvic bone to pull out bone marrow. Yeah, sure. Okay. Yeah, sign me up. I'll do it twice. Like, what are
Did
we
you take
doing?
any medications for that?
They gave me something for afterwards, and then like just very politely, like, hey, so if you have a fever or anything like that, you might be internally bleeding, so come back. Like, I felt like everything just it was so fast, like I said, from initial diagnosis to all 6 rounds of chemo, steroid therapy, Neupogen injections for your white blood cell count, like all these things. I just feel like the time frame was so fast. When I was going through it, it was the slowest 6 7 months of my life. But when I look back now,
Right.
I'm just like, I know people like yourself that it was so long from start to finish. Where for me, it's just like not like I'd ever want to do that again, but it's like, well, it was 7 months. So for me, it was just like, oh, it wasn't too bad. But then in hindsight,
Mm.
like I said, it's like, well, no, what do you mean not too bad? Dude, you had cancer. What are you talking about? Like, it was really
Cancer.
bad. But it's just that bone density scan was just, of everything that I went through, even from breaking my back to wearing a back brace that was just so, it hurt so bad. But my posture now is way better. Uh, It just, that one was by far the worst pain I've ever felt. Like I said, man, I felt like I wanted to pass out that whole entire 45 minutes.
Mm. Man, that's intense.
Yeah, it was
The
rough.
bone marrow biopsies are trash too.
Oh god, the
I've had
fact
to
is,
get
man, it
multiple.
looked like he had like a Milwaukee drill, and like when you grab a drill and I felt like he did that, and I was like, oh yeah, it's a drill. This is a drill. It's medical grade though, so it's okay.
It's awesome that he had a drill. So the first time I ever got a bone marrow biopsy, I had a doctor and she didn't have a drill.
It was
She
just the needle.
manually was doing this.
Yep,
It was just the needle.
just you're laying on
And
your
my
side and
mom,
just getting pounded by a needle.
and so my mom is in the room, she's watching, right? Like I can't see because I'm just on the bed with my, like, just on my stomach. And I remember them asking if I wanted any pain meds before. And I said no, because I just thought I was like a champ. And I asked them if anybody had done it before with no pain meds. I'm not big on like medications
Yeah.
either, and so I was like, nah, I'll need it.
No, I'll raw dog it. We good. I'm 19. I got this.
I,
Yeah.
so I thought,
Yeah.
and
No.
so it's pressure because they numb it, but they can't numb your bones,
Mm-mm.
right? So I'm just breathing through them, hitting the bone and taking it out. And we did at least 2 tries, and they didn't even get the sample. It wasn't even that the sample was inconclusive. They
They
didn't
just
get
couldn't
the
even get it.
sample.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, they got my
So it's one
sample, but
time, no sample.
ugh,
2 times, no sample.
ugh.
Third time, sample. After that, I was like, man, because we had to do these again down the line.
Mm.
I think at least one time before each bone marrow transplant. And I asked the doctors if there was any other way we could do this because I didn't want to go through that situation. Afterwards was fine. I think actually after the first time I went and played basketball afterwards or something like that. And so then the next couple of times they used a drill, which
Mhm.
was way quicker, way more efficient. There was one time there was only one time when I felt it. I don't know if you ever experienced this. And when they pulled out the sample, I felt it shoot down all the way through my leg. And it was like, I don't know. I guess it like was some kind of nerve or something it was only one time though. All the other times were different
Yeah.
and were a lot more seamless.
Yeah,
So that was a weird feeling too.
I never had anything like that. I think just like some of them just doing some of the scans, and having, like any of like the dyes or anything like that injected into you, especially like MRIs. I'm heavily tattooed. So they were
Yes.
like, "Hey, so some of your tattoos may get hot." And I'm like, "What do you mean they might get hot?" And they're like, "Well, you might feel like they might be warming up." I'm like, "All right, well, that's a good portion of my body. So, like, am I gonna feel it like all across my chest, on like both my arms? Like, wait, what's going on here?" And they were like, "Well, just let us know." It's like, but I'm in these donuts, and you told me not to move, so I'm kind of confused here. This whole like PET scan thing, like I'm not supposed to move, but if I start feeling stuff, okay, sure, I'll let you know.
Did you feel that?
One time when I got, it wasn't the MRI. There was another scan. I don't remember what it was, but they were like, hey, your tattoos might heat up a little bit, or you might feel like you wet your pants.
Mm,
I was like, okay, there it is. So I genuinely felt
mm.
like the heat, but like none of my tattoos like really like heated up. The only thing that like really was kind of weird, like with my tattoos, some of like my reds in my tattoos after chemo for whatsoever reason, it's gone.
It's gone.
It's gone. Like I've got, on my sleeve on my left arm, I had like some petals that were kind of like colored in red and then some stuff on my chest piece. And like that color's just gone now. It's just like not even there. So I don't know if, like the chemo just broke everything down and like the pigment just left when my whole body peeled like a snake multiple times. Like I have no idea, but I think that was the only crazy part. Or I actually, my port got infected, so they actually had to like cut my port out. So when they cut my port out, it was the same thing. I have a chest piece, so they had to cut it. So there's just this gnarly scar that's on my chest now, where he was like, "Hey, when they imported the plant and they put the port in, he did a really good job. That was like, hey, I'm going to cut it right on one of the lines of the banner. I'm going to make the pocket and everything. And same thing, when I cut you up around your neck area, I'm going to try and
Yeah.
place it so that you don't like see the scar or anything like that. Or you might be able to find it, but anybody else that's looking at you, they won't be able to see it. Well, when my port got infected after my fifth round, then they were like, we couldn't find where the infection came from. So it was like, well, this hurts really bad. Like, and it's really, really hot. So the doctor was like, found the infection site. Like, there it is. So the surgeon had come in and was like, "All right, man, you want to go to the operating room, or you just want me to do it right here in the room?" I was like, "You just do it right here in the room, man." He's like, "Cool, I'm gonna go get my kit." So he goes, grabs a kit, grabs some lidocaine, hits it, and then scalpel, cut it right out. But he did that right on the
Oh,
tattoo, so it like left a pretty fat scar because he was just like, "Look, I'm not trying to do this like really nicely. We just got to get this thing out of you." So that's like the only other thing that
man.
happened to any of my tattoos.
So, okay, so for anybody that's watching, a port is basically a permanent IV that they put in your chest. In your case, in your chest,
Yeah.
the line goes up through to a main artery in your heart, and so it's like a block. It's kind of like a dot right here, and then you can see the cord basically go up through your neck into down into your chest. And so, like, I had two ports actually. I
Okay.
had a port, I got it removed. Then I was healthy. I was in remission for 3 years. Then I had a recurrence, and I had to get the port put back in.
Mm,
I've never had an infection in my port,
yeah.
and I could never imagine what that would be like. So yeah, so what did that feel like? It was just, you said it was just burning.
Yeah. So my very first round, because after we got all my scans back and everything like that, and got my PET scan, my first initial one, and nothing had spread. My oncologist was like, "Look, we're not waiting till next week. Like, you're getting your first round on like this Friday," which there's these Fridays that occasionally happen every year that are on the 13th.
Wow.
This is wild that like my last round of chemotherapy was on a Friday the 13th. And I actually opened our salon and barber shop on a Friday the 13th. So Friday the 13th are extremely lucky in our household. But she
That's a
tells
good
me, like,
day.
she calls me on like a Tuesday and she's like, "Hey, cool, you got to go get one more, but I'm pretty sure like this Friday coming up, like you're getting your first round." I'm like, "Oh, okay. Yeah, sure. Let's fast track this. Sure. Not a problem." My port install wasn't scheduled until after because I was going to get my port installed. Then we were going to do my first round of chemo. So it was going to be like a week. But she was like, "Absolutely not. Like, you're coming in Friday. Like, not a chance, dude. Like, we're getting this started." And that was only like a week before my 30th birthday. So my birthday is the 22nd of July. So this was, not
Your
even a
birthday
week.
is the 22nd of July?
Yeah. So
Bro, that's my fiance's birthday.
no way. That's
That's
crazy.
crazy.
So I had my first and my sixth round in my right hand.
Yeah.
And then after that, I get my port installed. So I do round two, three, four in my port. No, two, three, four, five. So it was after my fifth round that it was, you got to go, you got to get your labs done. Well, that was on me that I was dragging and was like, all right, well, okay, I guess I'll get up and get off the Xbox and go get my labs done. So I go to Kaiser and I go to the labs and it's just packed. So I'm like, screw this. I am using this card right now and I'm going to oncology and I'm going to have them do my labs in oncology instead of going to the labs. I'm going to use this card right now. But it was my own fault. Like, I was dragging and just procrastinating. So I go up there and they're like, "Well, why don't you just go to the lab?" I'm like, "The lab's out the door. Like, I don't feel like waiting. Like, we're going into my last round, like, come on, just throw me a bone here." So they do that. And the nurse was like, "Oh, okay, we need to do your labs." I was like, "Yeah, but I got a port. So that's why I came up here. So you can just access my port, grab everything, and then we'll go." And she's like, "Oh, I haven't accessed a port since like nursing school." I was like, "What?" She's all, "Yeah, like, I don't know if she was like filling in. I don't know how it worked, but she had said that out loud." And I was like, "Wait, what? Like, for real? Like that, like it's been a while or anything? Like, just like a while, like a week? Like, you said nursing school. Are you sure?" So I don't know if she was like joking with me, just like because I had never seen her before. So she accesses the port, and that needle that accesses ports is like a talon. So she was just this, short little lady, and she just gets up on it. Boom. And I'm like, oh, wow, he really, really got in there. So then fast forward just like not even like a full week, all of a sudden I like spike a fever.
Hmm.
And I'm like, something's wrong, babe. Like, I know I just, finished my fifth round not that long ago. And that's why I needed to wait, that week to be able to, do labs because I had to take Neupogen. So let's make sure that week and a half, almost 2 week mark going into your final round. Let's make sure everything's good. So I do that. And then it's like coming up almost on my sixth round. And I'm like, yeah, I don't feel good. So my wife takes my temperature and it was like 102.8. And it's 100.4, you're at the ER. So I call my oncologist and she's like, cool, I'm going to let the ER know. So just come on in. Like, we'll be waiting for you. So they were down there and they were waiting. And it just, even the drive from my house to the hospital, I was just like, something's wrong. Like, I could feel it. Like, something's not right. Like, I'm just getting hotter and hotter. We get there, they take my temperature, and it's now 103 something. So they're like, "Oh no, like we're admitting you. We gotta, start hitting you with, some, ibuprofen or Tylenol. We gotta get your fever down, but we gotta find out what's really going on because we think we know what's going on. But let's run some tests." So they end up running some tests on me, and it comes back, and they're like, "Yeah, like you have a blood infection right now." Like, you have barely any immune system and your blood's infected. So, yeah, we got to start you with some multiple antibiotics. We're going to keep doing, like rotating either ibuprofen or Tylenol to get this fever down. So, like, my highest fever was like 104 something. And if
Oh
anybody's ever
my
had, yeah, if anybody's ever had a fever that high, like, I borderline felt like I was hallucinating. I had no idea what was going on. I just remember just laying in the bed, but I felt like I was freezing cold. Like, I felt like I was ice cold, even though temperature definitely said otherwise. So we end up finally, getting the infection under control, get the fever down. But I remember feeling my chest and it just like touching my port, even like where the scar's at now, and it's been 10 years. It still hurts, like from
oh.
scar tissue and stuff. Like, there's still a little bit of pain there. I mean, it's nothing like I've obviously experienced worse, but there's still a little bit of pain there. But I remember, telling the doctor when she came in and, her telling me, like, if you potentially would have tried to, like, get your fever to go down by yourself at home, like, you potentially could have gone into cardiac arrest because you were septic. Like, you have a blood infection. Like,
Oh my.
you you could have died from that. I was like, wait, what? She was like, yeah, your blood's infected right now. You barely have an immune system. Like, yeah. It's like, oh wow, all because of this little thing. Wow, that is wild. So I ended up telling her, like, hey, because I couldn't like figure out, like, where did this infection come from. So I tell her, like, hey, like, touch my port right here. Like, it's super hot. So she comes over and she touches it and she's like, oh yeah, for sure. Like, that's it. Like, it was hot, hot. Whole body was good. Just my port was just so hot and just barely tapping it. It just pain. So she was just like, "Nah, man, that thing's got to come out. It's coming out." Like, we figured it out, nailed it.
Oh my gosh. That is that is crazy. That is a crazy experience.
Yeah,
That's insane. I had a fever pretty bad. It was like 102. 104 is insane.
yeah. It
That is
was right at 104, like 104.1, and that was all me though, because like I said, I felt like I was so cold and like the temperature kind of started going down a little bit when the nurse left the room and my wife was like, hey, I'm going to go back to the house. I want to go get some things and I'll be back in a little bit. I'm going to check on the kids. Same thing, they were with mom or my dad. Yeah, there was one of my parents, because my parents alternated. My dad came up from San Diego, my mom came from Texas. So like, hey, you take 2 rounds, I'll take 2 rounds. So kids were with someone at the house. So my wife was like, hey, I want to go get some stuff. I'll be back. Well, when they left, I thought it was a great idea to turn the heater up in the room and keep all the blankets on because I felt like I was cold, like I was freezing.
Mhm.
So then my wife comes back, like an hour or two later, and that's when the fever got really high, where the nurse was like screaming at me and was like, "Oh hell no, you are not dying on my watch." Throws the blankets off me, cracks ice packs, and just ice pack on the neck, ice pack on the neck, ice pack under the armpit, ice pack under the armpit, ice pack on the legs. Like she like gave me like an ice bath. Like I cold plunged in the hospital bed because she was like, absolutely not. Mm-mm. Nope. That lady was really
Wow,
nice. It was really funny though, like because she was just like, oh hell no.
dude!
Yeah.
Thank God to all the nurses,
Yeah. I
man.
I had some really amazing nurses and my oncologist, everybody from, like I said, port installation to de-installation. I mean, just everybody, and that's where it's really bad because it's just like I always hear like these like horror stories of people with Kaiser, and I had the best care I've ever had in my life was there.
Dude, I love Kaiser.
Yeah.
So my mom, she works for Kaiser. So most of my care was done through Kaiser,
Mm.
and then when I got a transplant, it was at OHSU, and it's a hospital in Oregon. And I love Kaiser for so many reasons. And I've had, just like you, great experiences with
Yeah.
Kaiser. I love
Phenomenal.
how it's all streamlined. It's all in like it's like all in, usually in one building, or it just it seems really smooth. And I've had a great experience. And just like you, I always hear people kind of bashing Kaiser
Yeah.
for whatever reasons they have bad experience. And I'm sure, no, nobody's perfect. I'm sure there's bad experiences all over the
Yeah.
place, right? So that's awesome to hear that you had a great experience with Kaiser, because I always feel the same way,
Yeah.
right?
It was
And
amazing.
yeah, man, the doctors, the nurses, the like I have, like I would legit be friends with some of those people
Yeah.
if they were just normal people, and so yeah, I felt the same way. That's insane that you had a crazy fever. I'm so glad, man. You've been through a lot of stuff in those,
Yeah.
like, it was so quick, 6 7 months.
It was, and that's what I mean. Like, Dr. Mahaldar had an amazing plan, and she was like, "Look, like I know what I'm going to do. Now that we have your diagnosis, and like I know one, you're young enough. Your previous history in life, as far as being an athlete. I've done sports my whole entire life, and it wasn't too far removed, from still playing soccer and doing sports and working out and things like that. So it was like you're really healthy. So like I said, I'm going to hit you hard. We are going to get rid of this. We're going to do it in, a very quick and efficient way. And you're just going to live the rest of your life.
That's awesome, dude.
Yeah.
And that, man, having confidence from your doctors
Oh, yeah.
gives you so much confidence, and being able to hear them confidently say, man, we're gonna do XYZ, man, like you're gonna be good.
Yep.
And then, so then that goes to another level. It sounds kind of crazy. We're lucky that we got a type of cancer that they understand how to deal with,
Yeah.
right?
Which I didn't even know this, but a buddy of mine, I was actually the officiant in his wedding. And we were at his parents' property, and his dad, he came out of his office, and Mr. Herman came out, and he gave me a hug, and he was like, Jeff, I'm so glad, that that you beat this. Hey, what cancer did you have? So I'd let him know, like, oh, I had non Hodgkins lymphoma, and he was like, wow, actually, I was on the team at the time. I think it got bought out or by Lonza, but it was Genentech here in Vacaville, and they actually, one of the drugs that is used to treat non-Hodgkin's lymphoma is is manufactured at that plant, And Genentech to where Kaiser is, they're like on the same street here in Vacaville. So when he had told me that, it was just like, wait, what? But it just like the craziest like coincidences where it's like, okay, so one of the main drugs that is used for, treating non-Hodgkin's lymphoma is right down there. That is wild. So it's just like crazy things like that. But like you said, NHL now, it's one of those where fortunately not even just, like remission, but I've been December 7th was 10 years for me. So it's like, 10 years of just, a second chance on life. That's what I really took it as, whereas, like I have a rebirth day too. I have a birthday and I have a rebirth day.
That's awesome. I don't believe in coincidence.
No.
That's yeah. That's that that's crazy.
Yeah.
So we're kind of at time. I got one more question for you.
Yeah.
What is the best advice that anybody has ever given you in your life in general? Period.
Oh man. I've lived a pretty long life so far. I just turned 40, so gotten a lot of advice. I think one of the best pieces of advice ever was to not sweat the small stuff, because it's those small little things that I think a lot of people like get held up on. But to sweat those small things, especially if they're an uncontrollable, like you just can't. Like you can't really, dwell on that small little thing. I mean, you shouldn't dwell on any of it, because life is short. It's precious, but don't sweat the small stuff. You know, there's other things that you could sweat, but sweating those little small little things or something that might make you agitated in the grand scheme of life, being that we're not here for a long time. We're here for a good time, but don't sweat those small things. Just stay positive and just be happy. Because the reality is every morning you get to wake up and you get to experience life to its full potential if you want it to be. But if there are those days where it's like, I just kind of don't really feel like fully lifing right now, that's okay. But don't sweat the small stuff.
Yeah, I love that. That's awesome. Right? They say if you're not going to think about this in a day or something like I don't
Yep.
know how the quote goes, then it's really not that important.
Yep.
I also think
Yeah.
I also think right like I come from a background of sports as well. I think that has something to do with how we are wired internally and mentally,
Yeah.
right? Like you're playing soccer, right? Like you don't have time to the ref made a bad call, like you got to get to the next play. Right?
Yep.
He didn't make the call, like the game's still going. It's too fast, right? And so I know for me at least my background playing growing up playing sports has always followed through and carried through in all aspects of my life as far as being able to kind of shift and stay positive and being able to like my high school coach always said it like this. He always would shout out next play, next play,
Mm.
next play, and I think just a background of sports and team sports, I always encourage everybody to do
Absolutely.
and to encourage kids to do and be a
Yes.
part of because it gives you life skills that I notice with people that never played those team sports or anything like that. It's just kind of a different dynamic
It is.
and it translates a little bit differently in your life. So
Yeah.
I think that definitely plays a part in our mindsets too.
Yeah, I think just kind
Cool.
of just piggybacking that real quick, of not sweating those small things. And it was something that, it was a show that if, people haven't watched it, just definitely go watch it was, and obviously being, a soccer guy was Ted Lasso. And I actually said it to the Little League team that I was helping coach last year, where, we would always tell them, like, hey, like that strikeout's done and it's over with. So after one of the games, that we lost, we didn't lose a whole lot, it was just a couple, but I just told the kids, be a goldfish. Just forget about it. There's no need to dwell on it. So I had said that, that quote of just, be a goldfish. And these boys were kind of like, what? Be a goldfish, coach? What are you talking about? But then some of the parents were like, Ted Lasso reference. Let's go. So it was just,
Yes.
along that line, like I said, of, just like to not sweat the small stuff, but, it's be a goldfish. Just forget about it. Like, let's just move on. Just go to the next thing. I promise that doesn't matter anymore. Just keep going. Life is short. Life
That's
is precious. Life is beautiful.
yeah. That's awesome. Cool. Awesome. Well, thanks, Jeff, so much
Yeah. Thank you
today
for having me. I enjoyed this,
for
man. Thank
being
you.
here. This was so awesome, man. I really appreciate your time. For anybody watching, make sure to check out. You can right. You're a barber, right?
I am. I
That's
am.
what you do,
Hmm.
right? So it's tell everybody where they can find you if they ever need a cut.
So I am located at 901 Merchant Street, Suite B in Vacaville, California. The shop's name is La Barbalon. My wife and I own it. It's actually a barbershop and a salon. That's actually how the name came about. So,
Very
I'm
cool.
the barber in there. We do have a couple stylists. I do work with my wife. It's probably one of the greatest things ever, except when you got to talk to HR about stuff.
That's awesome, man,
Yeah,
dude. That's so cool. Cool, man. Well, again, thank you so much for taking your time to share your story with
yeah.
us. Really appreciate it. Everybody that's watching, go check out the podcast Beast vs. Zombie on Spotify and YouTube. That's where you'll be able to see these full videos and check out stories that will keep you inspired on overcoming challenges in your life. Check out the website BeastvsZombie.com. That's where you'll get merchandise like this. 10% of everything goes to cancer awareness and cancer research. Have a great day, everybody. Be a beast.